Hi, welcome everybody to our first Meet the Team of 2023. With us today, we have Travis Ford and Ben King, two of our senior security consultants. Ben and Travis have been focused on developing our DevOps service over the past 6 months, and they have done really exciting things in this space. So to kick us off, how long have you both been working at MWR, and give us a brief overview of your career paths so far?
Sure. So I've been working here for 6 years now. It's been my first job in cybersecurity. I had a bit of a slow start to my career, but as I got a more comprehensive understanding of cybersecurity, I found my footing, and it allowed me to branch out into newer areas such as DevOps.
Yeah, I've been here for about 8 years working at MWR in this office. Also taken a bit of a slow start and a bit of a circle in my journey. So I was originally a consultant for about 3 years, and then I switched over to Countercept as a security engineer for a bit, and then at the time that we got acquired by F-Secure, sort of transitioned more into development team role, where I was a bit of a junior manager for development in there. And then since then, in the last 2 years, I've come back to the consultancy just to deal with the problems. So.
Awesome. And what would you say you enjoy most about working at MWR?
I feel that it's very fulfilling work. Never mind the difficult challenges and problems that we have to try and solve. It's not just about solving difficult problems. More often than not, it's about identifying what the actual problem is. So the challenge that comes with that, but then also sort of the environment and culture that we have, sort of enabling people to be able to do those things, I think is sort of the core thing that anchors to MWR. It's sort of being surrounded by passionate people that are smarter than you, but are all willing to help you. It's sort of helping people up rather than sort of elevating yourself over other people. So that's a huge deal to me. It's a great place to work.
That's quite cool. I really enjoy working here for a few reasons. I think one of the things I like most is that, if there's something you want to go into in cybersecurity and you want to dig deep into it, you get the time to do so. So that's really nice. And then also the people, like Travis saying, everyone's really helpful. Everyone's really willing to teach and to learn. So if you've got a problem, you can go to someone, you can discuss, you can brainstorm. And then like Travis is saying as well, they're really smart people here. So sometimes people just straight up know the answer to the questions you're asking, which is amazing.
Amazing. And can you tell us a bit about the DevOps course that you developed, what it aims to cover and who the intended audience is?
Sure. So I was first introduced to DevOps through Kubernetes. So I really liked Kubernetes because it's super modular and it's scalable, and I just really liked it as a platform in general. But then I was also really curious with, how do large organizations deploy and automatically deploy to this infrastructure? So I think that was my main introduction to it. And then around this time as well, we were doing a security review for a larger development company. And I discovered a critical vulnerability with one of their DevOps pipelines. Effectively, this vulnerability allowed us to compromise production deployment. And this was pretty big because this particular pipeline deployed code to a large portion of their client's estate. So we were in a position to deploy code to a large portion of the client's estate, which if we deployed malware as an example, would allow us to compromise their estate. So it was pretty big. And I think around this time as well is when I realized how important DevOps security was, just because of one small vulnerability within the pipeline had such a large impact. So this is where I got involved internally within DevOps. So then, so as Travis would say, that's quite funny. If you compromise a component along routes to deployment, you compromise deployment. So one of the goals we had for this course was to give the DevOps team members the knowledge and the tools in order to secure their pipelines from development to deployment. So we wanted it to not be possible to compromise along routes, or at least for it to be significantly hardened against attack. So that was one of the goals. Then another goal, which I think I was specifically concerned about, was for the recommendations that we'd be providing to be used as an enabler, not as a hindrance. So we wanted the recommendations to we wanted the DevOps teams to use the recommendations to create a secure environment for the developers. So so developers could develop in peace, knowing that everything's been hardened against attack. So I like to compare it against, how we secure our housing. So, we put up security to our housing so that we can walk around and live in peace within those security boundaries. So that very similarly with DevOps. Then in terms of target audience, so the course has both components from development and operations. So it'll have, so for team members who are in development and those who are in operations, it'll have components from roles outside of their responsibilities. But, I feel if they explore these roles within the greater DevOps environment, it'll give them insight into their teammates' roles, which will really help collaboration and communication. And I think that's really important if you're going to design a secure DevOps system, is that both the teams can work really well together. I think it's really important. So I suppose to state simply, DevOps engineers would probably benefit mostly from the course because all of the course content applies to their roles. But we definitely recommend or encourage both developers and operations team members to do it as well. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd really add is so with a better understanding of how sort of software development works and sort of what the greater software development lifecycle is, we've got various phases from code changes all the way to deployments, and depending on sort of how your organization goes about developing software, like Ben touched on, there will be multiple teams involved in that as well. And a very important aspect that we realize is that you can't sort of focus on an individual phase. So, for example, ensuring that your release process is well defined, but then messing up in earlier phases can undermine whatever controls you incorporate there. So we really wanted to sort of take a step back and sort of touch on all those points that might involve multiple teams. And most importantly, give insight into how their typical tooling could be abused in terms of what a real world attack might look like. When it comes to security, we more often than not, think about vulnerability. But when it comes to sort of issues along the way of your software development lifecycle, it's more often than not configuration weaknesses that can be abused to do very bad things. So we know what vulnerabilities in software look like, but then we know that we need to sort of incorporate or adopt something like a DevSecOps to sort of minimize vulnerabilities and the resultant build. But as part of that, we also have to care about sort of the supporting infrastructure that enables all of this. So the way that we wanted to do that is just sort of walk through the different phases and expose people to what attacks look like in this space, because we know it's bad. There's not a lot of public information in this space. If you think about SolarWinds, that's probably the most well-known public breach where the build process was compromised and that was abused to do a much bigger attack. So we are aware of these things, but we don't really know what they look like. So in putting the course together, we wanted to teach people what practical attacks look like so that they could understand the mindset used to sort of target these kinds of environments. And that being said, like Ben touched on, it's going to affect multiple teams at the same time. So exposing them to what these things look like and also gaining an understanding of what other teams are responsible for will better facilitate collaboration, which will break down whatever communication barriers might be there. The typical throwing releases over the fence just isn't going to help. We know that not only slows down the pace of deployment, but it can also create security issues in the sense of who's responsible for what. So we really wanted to give participants a good understanding of where things go and how the actions contribute to the security model of that environment, and sort of what awareness they need to sort of prevent those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think I'm going to add one more thing to what Travis is saying, just to emphasize again. I think that's where we found most of the issues was between the relationships between the various team members. I think that's why we designed it as a holistic course, because we didn't want any gaps in between those processes.
Definitely, and just to add to that, it's not just sort of separate teams in terms of developers versus ops, it's also understanding how different development teams might affect the security model of the shared environment, because the larger your organization, the more you're going to share technology and infrastructure, and then you might get into a situation where one team is doing everything right, but another team isn't, but they're using the same infrastructure. So it's just understanding sort of the dynamics of the security model of these environments. So it was an interesting point to try and put into perspective.
Amazing. And why would you say you feel security should be such a key focus for DevOps right now?
So I suppose for me, that initial vulnerability I spoke about earlier, if security was, suppose, more integrated into the DevOps process, that vulnerability wouldn't have been there from the beginning, guaranteed. Like someone would have found it, someone would have fixed it. But yeah, I think because it was largely non-incorporated, I think is probably the best word. It went overlooked. So then I suppose in short, I would say not incorporating security or to a significant level or sufficient level, I'd say is a bit negligent. Just because it doesn't need to be substantial, but if it's incorporated those, that vulnerability wouldn't have been there. That's a good example.
Also don't think it's something we should only consider now. I think shifting security left as sort of the whole DevSecOps philosophy will be to sort of avoiding the introduction of vulnerabilities at end products, and in that sense is rather important, but also securing and showing the security of the supporting infrastructure that goes into that is just as important, because having a well-defined DevOps process or multiple teams or whatever greatly enables businesses to release features and stuff more rapidly than that. So not only does value reach customers quicker, but it also makes it possible to address issues in your software a lot more quicker. So it's something that just enables businesses to do what they're doing in the digital space. So in that sense, because it's a core function of the business, ensuring that security is integrated throughout is absolutely key to that business's success. I don't think it's something we should only care about right now. I think it's something we're going to continue to have to care about, especially with sort of the adoption of cloud technologies, which changes the nature of your perimeter in a sense, because now things are just accessible from anywhere. And also combined with how everything is integrated in the sense and how dependent we are. When things go bad in the space, they can go really bad. So ensuring that you get security right is absolutely critical. Moving towards sort of incorporating it further down the chain, rather than just pen testing at the end, you are sort of addressing the root cause of where vulnerabilities are, because pen tests is like nothing static these days. Everything is still very rapidly. So doing a pen test at the end, while you might find something, that's sort of a snapshot at a point in time. Things can change and do change rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, how long has that vulnerability been there?
Yeah, exactly. So it's something that we should be caring about. I believe everyone does care about it. It just comes down to what the attacks look like, why. Like, there's no shortage of information on how to do security in this space. It's just how do you go about it practically to actually get it right? How do you measure if you got it right?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys.